Why do I have an empty bottle of Kraken 94 proof here? That's because I just drank it. Now under this video.
Join the team.
Hey, theMCGuiRE Review, and today we're going to take a look at the brand new game from Cephalofair Games, which is Gloomhaven Buttons Bugs, and it comes in this tiny little box right here. Now, this video is going to be a review video, okay? If you're looking for a how to play, there's a number of other videos that are out there. Some of them are good, some of them are not. However, there are a number of other videos out there that are playthroughs that will kind of show you how to play the game. We're going to get into a little bit of like kind of setup and how to play, but we're not going to do a playthrough. We're going to focus on the components. We're going to focus on the value. We're going to focus on the game. We're going to focus on what this package actually offers you as a gamer. Okay? We're going to get into the minutia. I'm going to need the cards a little higher. And you're going to know, as a gamer, if Cephalofair Games has actually created something pretty cool here. Okay, if you are unfamiliar with Gloomhaven, then, you know, maybe you are. But if you are unfamiliar with Gloomhaven, and it's St. Patrick's Day, that's why I look like this. There has been a number of different titles. There are books, there are RPGs, there are video games. They have done quite a bit with the ecosystem of Gloomhaven. At this point, you have Gloomhaven, the big box board game. They then released Frosthaven. They have something called Jaws of the Lion Gloomhaven, which is kind of a smaller form box set of Gloomhaven. And now they have Gloomhaven Buttons Bugs, which actually may be the best Gloomhaven of all. Now, I say that, and you may think, well, that's weird. You know, I mean, obviously, with the full Frosthaven or Gloomhaven, you've got the stickers, you've got the map build out, you've got all of the, you know, various things that you would do. But when you break this game down to the core mechanics of what makes Gloomhaven, I think they have done something pretty special here with this tiny little box. Which, you know, I've been waiting on for quite some time. We're going to pause on that because I don't want to go too quick into that review aspect. I do want to hit the components of the game. All right, the first thing I'm going to mention here is you're going to get literally just what's in front of you here. There's not too many components. Obviously, it has to fit in this tiny little box. You are going to get some smaller form factor cards. These are going to be your different heroes' abilities. Same concept as any other Gloomhaven. You've got the top ability, the bottom ability. As we're going through some of this stuff, you will see throughout the video, Bear will hit us with some side-by-side work. So you can see some of these components up close, okay? Then there's going to be your enemies. Now, I will say with the enemy deck, which is right here, and some of them I do have out. I have this set out for the... I've played most of what's here. So I do have it set out, though, for the second campaign, or the second scenario. There's one campaign. There's like 20 scenarios. You want to play all 20 scenarios. We'll talk about that here in a second. But there are 20 scenarios, which is quite a bit. And I had this set up for the second scenario. Most of the videos all do the first and second scenario. I just didn't want to go any further because it does kind of start to give away a lot of what kind of goes on within this tiny little deck, which is actually pretty awesome. So you do have a deck of monsters. I would recommend don't just start thumbing through them or flipping them over, because you're then going to kind of give away what you're going to be running into. And that's kind of part of the fun of playing through the campaign. They are in the proper order, so just go in order, and, you know, then you don't kind of spoil it for yourself of what's included in the campaign. That's just a little recommendation there. You will have your character cards here that I have set up right here. I'm playing the Tinkerer. Now, one thing that was pretty awesome is you do have 6 characters that are included in this box, which I thought was really smart. Normally when they do these solo, and this is a solo game, it's a solo only. Normally when they do that, they're going to give you 3 characters, maybe 4. They did 6, which was smart. And it's all your classics. You got your Bruiser, your Cragheart, your Silent Knife, your Spell Weaver, your Mind Thief, and your Tinkerer. Okay, so you got your classics there. You do have a miniature that represents each one of your characters, which I thought was pretty cool. They obviously did not do miniatures for the enemies. The enemies are represented with these little tiny cubes right here, but they did do miniatures for the little characters. And they're actually nice little, I would say these are probably, I don't know, maybe these are 9mm. These are probably around 9mm. I'm not sure exactly, but if I had to take a guess, I would say they're probably about 9mm, maybe 10 at most. They're definitely not 15mm, but they're like 9 to 10. And they're actually really decently sculpted, nice little high quality miniatures. I definitely will be painting these because they're so tiny. There's not that many of them. There's only 6. So I'll base them up and I'll paint them. They'll look really cool. Just to add a little bit of a flair to the game, you do have your status tokens here. So in Gloomhaven, there's various statuses that you can get on yourself or put on your enemies. Those will be included. You do have these boards, which are pretty cool. They do hold kind of the enemy cards, and you will be rolling a die to kind of see, in Gloomhaven, you always have to roll a die to see, well, how does it kind of modify their attack and your attack? So there's one for you, you'll roll, and you'll have various different, modifiers when you attack, and so will the enemies, okay? These little cubes here will just kind of move down every single time you attack, and then it just gives you kind of a new row of what your modifications can be. And it just kind of rotates, and that does that for the enemy as well as you. The enemy then has 3 different sort of things they will do when it's their turn. You'll roll this die when it's their turn, and everybody of the same enemy will do one of those, like, kind of 3 things. And it's pretty similar. It's like maybe one of them gives them a little bit more move and less attack. Maybe one's a little more attack and less move. Maybe one of them gives them a little extra shield. And so that's kind of how that works. Okay? You're going to have one single reference card, and then you're going to have kind of your setup with your card, and then you're going to have your story deck here, which is interesting. I'll explain that here in a second. What's done well? I think what's done well are these little boards. They're high quality. I would say overall, pretty much most of the components are all like nice and high quality. You got your little dials. They come already assembled. Your die. Everything is, I would say, for the price point, pretty high quality. However, these cards, and you'll notice, I do have all of mine sleeved. I generally do not do this. I just don't sleeve board game cards anymore. I'll sleeve TCG games, obviously, for all the shuffling and whatnot, but I don't sleeve board game cards anymore. Because generally in today's standard, the board game cards are thick enough, they're coated, you just don't shuffle them as much. There's just no reason to sleeve board game cards anymore like it would have been 10 or 12 years ago. Again, this is my opinion, but it just is not worth the extra money. However, for this game, because there's only just a small stack of cards, and you're talking 20 cards, 26 cards, 27, what is that, 27? There's 27 full-size cards, I believe. That's not that much, so I sleeved them just to give them a little extra protection, and primarily I sleeved them because they warp like a motherfucker. These cards warp horribly, and the reason is because they're extremely thin. Now, I don't know why they just would have not given them a little bit of a thicker cardstock or a little bit of a higher quality cardstock. They're extremely thin, and they just warp like crazy. And you'll see on pretty much every video out there, the playthroughs, just look at the cards on the people's tables. They're like sitting, the card is like warped like this. It's all over the place. And to me, and even this card here, and that to me just, it looks cheap. I don't like it. So I put these cards in these little penny sleeves. If you put them in full-size sleeves, they'd be perfect. They still warp a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of movement there. But I'm not going to go beyond the penny sleeves. It's good enough. And it gives you a flatter surface when you're playing, because you will play the game on these little story cards, okay? So I don't want my card like warped up like some valley, and I'm like trying to like move stuff and it's sliding off. That I see that definitely from a component perspective I saw as a problem. And quite frankly, if I was making the game and I got the components and the cards were warping all over the place, I'd be like, all right, we need to make the cards thicker. They need to lay flat on the table, flat on the ground, especially when you're playing on top of them. So I don't know. I'm not sure why they warp so bad, but it's clearly not just mine. Any video you watch, the cards are warping all over the place, and they just shouldn't be like that. And the reason is because they're too thin. Okay, so that's a problem. That could have been better. These dials are actually really high quality, and they're really nice. And they're not like loose where they're like you bump them and they're all over the place. They're actually really nice, high quality dials, and they come assembled, which I appreciated. The problem in my mind is you can clearly see the difference of that one versus some of these other ones. I mean, I don't know if you were colorblind, maybe you could see the difference between. I'm not colorblind, but if you were, maybe the differences are okay for that. But not being colorblind, I can tell you, I can barely tell the difference between these three dials right here. Like, and if I take, this one's obviously purple. Like, if I look at them for a second, I can see, oh, that one is definitely a different color. But look at those two. Tell me which one's green and which one's blue. Like, they're almost the exact same color, and I just don't really, I really don't understand that. Like, why would you not just make these dials like a significantly different color that would actually go with the color scheme of your box, right? Look at the box. The box has got reds and yellows and purples and like bright blues. Like, it wouldn't have been a problem to make one of these dials like an orange or a bright yellow, like a golden color. It would have gone thematically with the color and the scheme of the whole entire game. So I really think it's odd that these dials are so muted in comparison of the colors of the rest of the color scheme and the palette that's used for the game. So that was another component thing that kind of threw me off a little bit. And again, this is a review, right? This was sent to the channel. And let's make that clear. I didn't buy this. I'm not sure that you can buy this just yet. It was sent to the channel for review. So we're going to review it. All right? Okay? From a component perspective, that's really all I can harp on, right? We got some colors that are kind of close here. Not really that big of a deal. It's primarily these warping cards. But I think if you just throw them in some sleeves, even some penny sleeves, you're good to go. And it all fits back in the box. It's not a problem. So, not that big of a deal. Other than that, everything else for the price point is pretty awesome. So the price point, this thing MSRPs for around the $20 mark, which means once you find it on your third-party sites, it's going to be even cheaper than that. So you really can't argue much with how low cost this is going to be for the amount of game and what you're getting here. Okay, so let's talk about the story deck here. So you're going to have this deck, and there's going to be a number of cards, and you're basically just going to turn the first card over, and you're going to start reading. So that's one thing that's nice, is you are going to get that campaign and that flavor. Is it going to be this super rich, over the top? Obviously not. There's 20 of these cards, right, with like little text on the back. So, but you get enough. It's actually really well written. You get enough that you do feel like you can kind of sink your teeth into this little adventure that you're going on. And every single one of these scenarios is like another fun little step of that adventure. So I was completely pleased with that, going through all of these scenarios. Some of them I did just read through because I didn't want to have to play like every single character. So how this works is each character will have their own specific scenario as well. So as you're going through here and you're playing, there'll be a number of them that will just be like, okay, you'll go to the next one, you'll go to the next one, and then all of a sudden you'll get to one that is say, oh, if you're playing this particular class, then go to this scenario. Otherwise, go to the next. And that's pretty cool, that there are character-specific scenarios that will kind of work with sort of your character and your character's abilities. So I thought that was pretty fun. I'm playing the Tinkerer. That's probably my favorite. I think that one's the complexity is high on this one, but And some characters like the Bruiser, the complexity is low. You just kind of go in and swing and hit. But the Tinkerer has a high complexity. And I like that some of the characters are easier to play versus others. There's other characters that are very more strategic. The Tinkerer is that. I really like the Tinkerer with the guns that I can pull people and push people, and I can jump, and I can hit from far, I can hit from close. There's just a lot of different, I can blow up, contraptions. There's a lot of cool things the Tinkerer can do. And that's how the story deck is going to work. You're going to get rewards every single time you beat one of these cards. There's little items that are at the top and the bottom of these cards that you'll get. And then when you go into the next scenario, past one, then you can start equipping items and taking them into battle with you, which is always really fun as well, because then you got what you would normally have with your cards. You've got these items that you can upgrade and take with you. Your 4 cards that you start with are level 1 cards. You can upgrade those cards to what they refer to as kind of level 2 cards that are more powerful. You'll get those as you level up and as you acquire different things within the campaign. You also can level up your character all the way from level 1 to level 5. So as you go through the little campaign here, it will indicate to you once you level up, you get to specific types of scenarios. You'll then go to these little cards here for your specific character, and you'll pull one of them. Like here's one right here. This one says level 2 for the Tinkerer, and it then goes right on top of this card. And all it does is it overrides the level 1 standard, what's printed on this, and now it becomes level 2. And the only thing is it changes your little modifiers here to give you better modifiers. So you kind of become more powerful as you play the game more and more. So as you start with really good stuff, but the more you play, you get items, you level up your modifiers, you level up your cards, and your character gets more powerful and more powerful based on that. And you can choose which cards you upgrade and which cards you do not. There may be some level 1 cards you really, really like using, and you just end up hanging on to them and keeping them and maybe only upgrading other ones. You can really customize how you want to go into each scenario. And that does become fun once you start to get into scenario 6, 7, 10, 12. You're really going to have a number of items and different things that you've acquired over the course of the game, as well as level 1 and level 2 cards. And now you're going to start thinking, okay, you're going to read your card, you're going to put out your scenario, and you're going to look at your enemies that are for that scenario, and you're going to think, okay, what's the strategy that I'm going to need for this one? And then you're going to go back and you're going to pick the cards you want and the items you want and really try to sort of customize out your character to maximize your impact on that scenario. So that's another thing that I thought was done really, really well with this particular version of Gloomhaven. It's done really well. Like that concept is done really well in Buttons and Bugs. Now, another thing to understand is you may say, if you know Gloomhaven, you may say, okay, well, there's just no way that you get the same kind of like gameplay and punch in or we'll say complexity in this than you would get if you were playing Frosthaven. And I would somewhat disagree with you if you said that. Because one of the things that I thought was done really well, and I was actually pretty surprised with, is just the level of complexity, puzzle solving, strategy and which cards to play paired with which items, depending on which scenario, is actually as complex as you'll get in the full scale Gloomhaven or Frosthaven or Jaws the Lion. Okay, in any of these other like full scale Gloomhaven games, you're going to get that same level of complexity here in Buttons and Bugs, which I was surprised with. Now you do have to get into a few of the scenarios before it really starts cranking that up on you, but it is definitely there, and I love that they actually did that. They didn't just say, hey, this is a microtized, scaled-down version of Gloomhaven, so we're going to scale down the strategy, we're going to scale down how hard it is, we're going to scale... They didn't really scale a lot of that out of there. They left the game still pretty big, even in this small package. And I absolutely love that. One of the things that I have not actually liked about the other versions of Gloomhaven is the fact that you cannot play the game as an actual solo experience. They do have solo mode, obviously, in Gloomhaven, but you have to control 2 characters. And I don't think it's a good experience. I'm just going to say it. It gets too fiddly, it gets too complex. You've got 2 characters with too many cards once you start to level up. You're trying to analyze the top, the bottom, the combos, the enemies, the puzzle that you're trying to beat. It's too much. And if they would just design it where you can truly play a solo experience in Gloomhaven with 1 character, it's so much better. And that's what Buttons and Bugs actually gives us, is that single, true solo Gloomhaven experience, and it is magnifique, okay? It is so much better to play this game, and all I have to think about is my character and my character's stuff and all the combos that I can do with the Tinkerer, and then I can put even more brain power towards focusing on the puzzle that's in front of me, versus all this, analysis paralysis that goes into 2 different characters and all these different cards and all these different combinations and who goes first and which card, and it's just too much, guys. And I've been saying this for years in these reviews, and we have finally got a true solo Gloomhaven experience, and I absolutely love it. And I hope that they take the learnings from the things that they did in Jaws the Lion. They streamlined a number of things. They gave us that fantastic book, so you don't have to fiddle with all the trying to build the map with these little tiles. They gave us the true solo experience in Buttons and Bugs. I really hope they take these learnings and they see how well these things work, and then they integrate those into the ecosystem for the next full-scale Gloomhaven, which the box is about 20 times this size. But they, the Frosthaven Gloomhaven box is like this big, right? This is probably not 20 times this size, but doesn't matter. I really hope they integrate that stuff back into the next one. Who knows what it is, the Space Haven, right? I'm not saying I know that's what it is. Watch it be Space Haven. If they made the next Gloomhaven Space Haven, how smart would that be, right? The space, the planets, the intergalactic travel. You know how amazing that would be for a Gloomhaven game? Tom Vassell would lose his shit. Watch it be Space Haven. Okay, I will wrap this review with saying something that I think is probably a pretty positive note. For the price point of this little box of goodness, it's really not... how much time is everybody going to spend watching videos should I buy it? This thing, again, it's around the $20 mark. When you're buying this on third-party sites, it's going to be even cheaper than that. This is going to come at an extremely low cost, okay? It's probably not even worth just buy it, right? If you like solo games, buy it. You'd be ridiculous not to have this in your collection for this price, for the amount of gameplay and experience that you're getting here. This thing travels as easy as it gets. You can pop this in a backpack. If your pocket's big enough, you might be able to put it in your pocket. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Bear, is that a Gloomhaven in your pocket? I'll stop there. Okay, you can blow through the scenarios. It says here approximately 20 minutes. It's about right. Depending on what the scenario is, if you really get down to playing this game and you're just moving, I'm talking 15 to 17 minutes and you can blow through a scenario. 20 minutes is about average. I don't think you're going over 20 minutes unless you're really, really thinking through maybe some of the end scenarios when you're fighting the end bosses and it's as hard as it gets. Then I think that you might go over that 20-minute mark, but you can blow through these scenarios super fast. So that's a win. If you like little tactical miniature games, if you like little adventure story games, it just kind of fits for any type of gamer from that perspective. It is the solo, low price, high quality, big experience game that's on the market right now. I don't know of anything else that can hang with this at this price point. It's going to be pretty hard from a solo experience. So, it is pretty much a no-brainer buy. And if they didn't print a freaking billion of these, they're probably going to be sorry, because I don't know how they're going to keep it in stock. Seriously, it's a buy. And I think that's one of the things that Cephalofair Games has done really good over the years. They haven't cranked on the greed dial, and it's been a very smart strategy to just do the Kickstarters and release the games at the right price, where you're getting a ton of value for what you're paying, and then they sell a ton of the product, right? And then there's more product in the ecosystem, there's more product in the community, thus raising the brand, thus raising the name, right? So they're really handling that stuff, I think, from a pretty smart marketing perspective. They're not tuning on the greed dial. They could have easily charged $34.99 or $39.99 for this, easily, and people would probably have still paid it for the Gloomhaven name. Now, that would have been lower, but to come out with an MSRP of what this has got and what you're going to be able to find this on sites for, it's an absolute no-brainer. Okay, so that is Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs. I do highly recommend this Gloomhaven game. It is a buy. Don't mess around. Don't be silly. Go get a copy. This is an unpaid review. That's how we roll. They did send it to the channel, but again, watch some of my other Gloomhaven videos. I don't always say the most positive stuff, but I am absolutely telling you they have nailed it with Buttons and Bugs, and I am very impressed. And with that, team, keep rolling, crits. This has been the McGuire Review, and we'll see you next time.